The Jamie Dyer Show.
My guest today is Ana Levin. Welcome to the podcast, Ana. Tell me, what is your passion?
Thank you, Jamie, for having me today. My passion is to help people trust in the power of their hearts.
Right. So that sounds quite broad to me. Can you elaborate exactly what you mean?
Yes, absolutely. And I think another word that pops to mind when you say broad is central. Because isn't it central to our lives that if we have a closed up heart, what kind of life I will live in? And it all started I can take you back to when it started for me and when it became very apparent that this was not only my message, but everyone's message. And it was about 2013. Yes, 2013. And I realized that I was really great at surviving, but I had no idea what it was like to actually live, to fully live. And that simple but so, pivotal question took me on this path of self-discovery, my inner journey, right? And in prayer is when I received the message, trust in the power of your heart. And like your first reaction, it was my reaction. I'm like, of course, this is such a simple message. Of course, lovey-dovey, right? Like, let's just, enjoy life. But little did I know the depth that this message actually has, and all the roads that would lead me through of looking at myself more intimately, more than any other time in my life, and in doing so, really completely changing the way I relate to myself and I relate to the world and to others. So, yeah, it's broad and yet very, very central,
So what was the first step towards kind of discovering that then?
The first step was recognizing that I couldn't tap into my passion, recognizing how lost I was in my head. And after finishing my master's degree, I like to use this term lightly. I felt depressed because I realized that it didn't take me to the place that I was seeking. I didn't know it at the time, but I was seeking a more intimate relationship with myself. I was seeking to get to know who I am. And in that place, and it was fantastic that I did it. And I love having the education. Okay. So nothing wrong with education. But it was great because it took me to a very uncomfortable place of asking myself, and this is it. Like, what is going on? Tony Robbins says the quality of your answers isn't the quality of your question. So if you don't have a quality, you're going to get a crappy answer. And so I said to myself, wow, okay, so what can I ask myself besides, like, I lost my passion, I can't find it. And I asked myself, what would my heart say? Because I was so in my head that I started to literally practice what would my heart say, and identifying when I was coming from my head and when I was coming from a heart-centered approach to life. And I literally would go to my closet, sit down and say, okay, that was your head. Take a deep breath, Ana, and what would your heart say? And I started to pray about it. And that's when I received the message, trust in the power of your heart. So yes, I don't remember where we were going, but that's kind of like the sequel, right? Like the sequence of how it happened for me.
I don't want it to sound particularly flippant, but if you're trying to listen to your heart, how do you know that it's your heart that's speaking?
That's a fantastic question again, because I believe, at least I can only talk about my experience and what I see in others that come my way. I didn't know what my heart sounded like. I had to actually develop the practice. And you were asking me, like, what was the first step? The first step is to actually accept that you don't know. just accept that you don't know. And from that place, something new can come in, a new perspective can come in. We can let go of patterns or stories that we're telling ourselves. So accepting that I didn't know and being open to discovering, I think often, in my case at least, having a false sense of control really was very appealing to me. And that's why I let my head win so many times, even though I am a feeler, even though I was born with this, beautiful heart. And that's, I believe, is my strength that now I share with others. But it took me a minute to get to that point, because the mind is what's celebrated in the world. And I think now we're seeing a shift, and it's beautiful to see this coming back to us, this coming back to a more soul power that's from the whisper that the heart has. It's not the loud, right, rumbling voices head. And I think that's the distinction that I learned. I learned to discern between both of them because I didn't know it.
No, and I would imagine that that's quite a long journey to that point. Now, I feel that for the regular listeners who listen to most of the episodes, we've had people on previous podcasts who've talked about kind of listening to your body in regards to health. And I'm assuming that this is more of a mindfulness thing rather than a physical thing.
Yes. Although it can also be physical, but yeah, I think it's more of a spiritual thing. I think it's more of that sweet, intimate connection with ourselves, and I don't know that I would say even mindfulness, because we don't use it. It's about discerning what the mind sounds like and the heart sounds like. And when we start to get to know the difference, then we can actually not be at the expense of our heads, but in harmony with it, because it's not one is better than the other. I don't believe that. I believe that we were created the way we were created for a reason. There's nothing that, how do you say, like nothing that is to go to waste, right? So it's about incorporating all of it, for me.
And using it in a way which is most beneficial to you. Now, I can relate to this sort of, and please stop me if I have misunderstood, but I, like you, did further education for about 6 years, and I enjoyed it very much. It was a very good experience, but I came out and I felt like something was missing. Like I suddenly, you sort of go on a journey, on a trip, as it were, and it took me perhaps 2 or 3 years to realize what I actually wanted, because like you say, the mind kind of takes over, and you get into a certain routine and it becomes very difficult to break it. And it's not until you have that sense of silence that you can actually make sense of everything.
Yes, and I agree 100%. And I think that's why I talk about the dance between both of them, but not being at the expense or even negating. Look, I really believe that one of the actual pandemics, that we're in is that our hearts are closed up. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because what kind of life as sensory beings that we are, as human beings, what kind of lives are we living if our hearts are not and we're not utilizing them? So we think that we have to feel instead of just feel. There's nothing wrong. The mind is the one that makes things right or wrong, and so I often ask myself, wow, what would if we actually had the courage to actually understand the wisdom of the heart? And every time it closes, because if we look at our physical heart, what does it do? It pumps blood, right? And it opens and closes closest. It is designed to do that, but we make it wrong. So we get into the wrong relationship, we suffer, we split up, and now we're going to be closed up. And what do we say to ourselves? I'm never going to be in another relationship ever again, Instead of saying, man, this really hurts. I am so sad. And it's an experience. And this too shall pass. And another experience will come my way, And so it's a matter of having courage to let our hearts open back up, because none of us are going to have our hearts open for the rest of hopefully, but I don't know. We're human beings, right? So
I suppose thinking about this, I guess it's a kind of an instinct, yes?
No, yes, because we want, we have a need or a desire to be comfortable and to avoid pain and avoid suffering. And those are wonderful areas to also look at in the intimacy of our own space, to sit with ourselves. Look, I had to sit with myself with so many difficult things. For example, being able to realize that where my love was coming from, even though I know I'm such a compassionate and loving person, and that's where my true power, I believe, and what I came here to give to others is my capacity to hold space for others and love and help them heal. That's what I do. Help them trust in the power of their hearts. But in order to get to a more solid and pure and centered space, I had to look at myself. And that takes courage, Jamie, because it means that the definitions that I had given myself had to be rumbled, right? They had to be shaken to the core. Now, am I still loving? Of course. But the place that it comes from, it's more pure, it's more centered, it's cleaner. It doesn't have, look, I can love you as a friend, but in a needy way, or in a jealous way, or in an envious way. Or I can love you in a just because I love spending time with you. I still love you in both scenarios. I still love, but the place that it comes from, right? And that's fascinating to me, because if we can actually look at ourselves, have the self-love and compassion towards ourselves, and look at ourselves those eyes, can you imagine? Because those are the things that open up our hearts. And in turn, it helps us trust our heart better. It helps us know what our hearts sound like. And then we can truly live heart-centered lives,
Yeah. Do you find that, based on what you're talking about there, do you find that maybe as a being, we should perhaps learn to love ourselves before we can love others?
Yeah, and I hear this a lot. I'm kind of a rebel, and I don't believe in I don't believe that one precedes the other, or supersedes the other one. I believe that it can be done, however it comes to us. Our experiences are individual, and they're perfect the way they are. And that's why it's important to understand that judging others is futile, because you don't know what somebody else's journey is like. You don't know their contracts, that you don't know their spiritual path. You don't know anything. For somebody, for example, going back to your question, for somebody it might mean that until they don't love themselves, then they're not going to be able to truly love others. And for another person, it's like they're super giving, and then in giving to them, they realize, oh my gosh, what about, like, if I'm giving to others, how come I'm not giving to myself? And that ignites, the desire to learn to love themselves. So we I don't believe in black and white, views of the world of creation in general.
I think it depends, as you're alluding to there, that it depends on the context of the situation. You make reference to perhaps helping others with this. Do you do this as a job, or is it simply just something you're really interested in and pass on to others?
Yes, this is what I do. among other things like translation. But this is what I do. I share my gift of my connection to God, to Source, and I help them align their energy so that they can actually get to know themselves, on a more intimate level, and be more aligned with who they truly are. And that could mean, getting rid of patterns, processing stories or experiences that are hard, right? That are stuck in our psyche, in our bodies, in our hearts. So anywhere in the energy field of a person, I am able to help them, you know, get rid of that, and just so that they can flow better.
And it must help most people that you end up working with. And I say most because you must have experienced, just for balance here, you must have experienced a level of skepticism towards what you do.
Absolutely. I believe that it helps. Every single person that has come my way has reported that it helps them. And yes, many people are skeptical because what I do is an experience that you have. And when you have the experience, it is undeniable, because you will feel things, get clarity, feel better, lighter, more at peace. These are all things that people. But yes, there's a lot of other people that have a different background. For example, I grew up Catholic, so there's some people that have that kind of background that they say, well, but I don't really know. I don't understand what you do. And you see, again, with the mind, like I have to understand. So my intention is always in my prayers is, please bring me the people that feel that I can help them. I'm here to help people. I'm here to serve people with this gift that was handed to me, not sought, because I didn't seek this. It was given to me. So for me, it's a joy, an honor, and a responsibility as well to share with others. But yes, the skeptics are going to always be out there. And that's their journey. I respect them. And it's also fascinating because now science is mixed, it's really marrying spirituality, if you will. I just had actually a scans with Dr. Fanning. He's a very well-known doctor that worked with Joe Dispenza. And we just did some scans on my brain of what happens when I'm actually doing these source energy alignments and readings. And it's just fascinating. So, that will come out, and it'll be, in his work, and it'll be in my website. And hopefully, because also my prayer is that I can help people, the people that are skeptical, I can help them, understand just a tiny bit more so that they can be open to the mystical experience that, they could have.
You've just made reference there to an idea that, are you able to turn this on and off, or is it just something that comes to you?
No, you can totally connect intentionally. And that is also what the message means, to trust in the power of your heart. And you see how something that seems so simple, it actually has a depth that continues to, it's the gift that keeps on giving. That's what I always say, because the more I dwell in the message, the more I discover. It's a gift, but it's also an intention. And with the power of your heart and intention, and utilizing the mind as well as a receiver, as a receiving station, is how I am able to, do what I do. And the grace of the infinite or source or whatever you want to call it. But it's an orchestration of all those components at the same time.
Well, I find it fascinating, and it's obvious that you have a certain something. I'm not going to be skeptical, and I'm not going to be completely for it, because some people are going to be that in the middle. And part of it is because they can't see anything. There's nothing physical there. It's kind of in the air.
Yes, absolutely. And that's also how we look. How do we learn when we go to school, right? Like we're little kids. That's how we learn. You look at the book, you memorize, you're okay because you can control it. You see with your eyes, but nobody's teaching us how to see with our hearts. What happens with blind people? Blind people have senses that are, developed even more so because they don't have sight. So that's what I want to really invite people. It's not about convincing anybody. It's just kind of like being like what we're saying, being a little bit more like a rebel, right? And say, well, I get your skepticism, but what would happen if you actually, opened up to the possibility? Like what would happen, and just have an experience.
Opening your mind to it for just a moment,
Yes.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll draw this to a close, but I could talk about this for a while because I am always interested in this subject and I really haven't read enough about it. So if anybody out there feels that I haven't asked questions that are deep enough, I do apologize. But if anybody like myself would like to find out more about what you do, either your own website or other written text that we should check out, what would you recommend?
Yes, the best way right now is to go to my website, which is Ana Laura Levin, ANALAURALEVIN. That's a good place to start. You can send me emails from there, and we can go from there. What I can do is have answer questions or have a brief conversation with people if they have a question about what I do, which is energy alignments and heart activations, and also I can receive messages. And with my background in coaching and psychology, I'm actually able to have a session with them after I'm done with the alignment and help them actually with tangible things that they can do in order to sustain the new alignment of their energy field. So it's pretty cool. I use both, you see, so one doesn't negate the other, but that's a beautiful place to start with. And yeah, and reach out. The most important thing that I want to highlight to all your listeners is if you feel it in your heart, it's like, I'm curious, or I feel like this lady can help me, or that's your cue. That's your heart speaking. So have the courage to reach out. It's like, you know what? This is so weird for me. Or I have a question. Like, I'm not going to get offended because, like I said, I mean, this is a gift that was given to me. I didn't seek it. So I don't have ego with it. Like it's something for me to share with everybody. And it's my joy.
If the last 20 minutes are anything to go by, you've been extremely calm. You've answered every question, even about skepticism. And, if that is just a tiny indication of what it is you do, then I'm sure that people will find something by at least just talking to you and finding out more information. And that was a lovely, rounded answer. And it brings us to the end of this conversation. But I'd like to say, Ana, thank you very much for appearing on the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Jamie, for having me, and many, many more blessings to you and your family.
The Jamie Dyer Show.